Hello everybody who's joined us right now. I actually cannot keep an eye on the chat at the moment. We're playing Mordhau, which I've been playing all week. You guys have seen it on stream Saturday and then Thursday last week. But today's a special and different day. Everyone in here, besides Muttley and myself, is a game developer who is actually working on the game we're playing right now. I have set up a time, at least Muttley has helped me set up a time, to contact, play with, and interview everyone in here. Are you? Yeah, that's you. So I wanted to thank everybody who is here for doing this, like taking your time, because I'm sure you guys are pretty busy working on the game.
Oh yeah, we're super busy.
Do you guys do this for your full-time job, or is this
Yeah, pretty much. I think most of us are just doing this, or now have been for quite a while.
That's very cool. That wasn't actually like the first question. I actually have a ton of questions over here. I'll just go ahead and get into them. I was talking about Chivalry earlier. That's like one of the games that got me into PC gaming, and I play Chivalry. I mean, I was playing it just the other day. I love that game, and I wondered how much inspiration from Chivalry is in this game, because it seems, I don't know if it's insulting, but it seems very similar.
Yeah, of course. I mean, most of us have a background as players from Chivalry. And it's definitely been one of the key influences for Mordhau, along with some other games as well, like Mountain Blade, but predominantly Chivalry. I think that shows.
It definitely does. I wondered if you guys had worked on Chivalry. Oh.
Directly, but some people here have done DLC content that later got into the game, like part of the contest stuff.
Really? Like what?
Fine, that's official content. It was quite a few maps. Thomas, can you?
Yeah. So I myself have been making a lot of skins, like helmets and weapons that you can buy for a game via the Team Workshop, as well as making maps. I myself, Crush and Vasinus, have been made maps for Chivalry back in the day.
Wow.
And a lot of them got into the game. Some of them as official content later on.
Like which ones?
That's pretty cool.
I'm curious.
Ones that got in were Shore, Forest, and Irilla. Those were the 3 maps.
That's super awesome,
Yeah.
because I've played Chivalry for years, and I love that game, and it's cool to know. God, I cannot even just imagine that. Actually, no, come on now. Okay, so what other games have you guys been a part of, other than Chivalry?
None.
Really?
This is our first game. Yeah.
Wait. So all of you together, this is your first project?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Who designed the netcode? Which one of you?
Me?
How did you? Okay, so one thing that I noticed about like these games, these what is it, like pre-alpha? No, it's alpha 8, right? Alpha build 8.
Yes.
Is generally like you can barely even play them online, but this has like the best net. It's better than almost games that are released. Like
It's a big it's a huge part of the game. I mean, I think we're all aware of that, and we wouldn't release this without solid netcode, and I still don't think it's very good, to be honest. We still have lots of room for improvement. like the most important thing when you're playing a game like this. If you're fighting the latency and the networking, it doesn't really help if the game is any good. I mean, just look at what happened to For Honor, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ouch. Definitely. And I was gonna, like, going back to the one we've talked about. Like, that's one of Chivalry's major downfalls. Is like, it doesn't matter what server you're playing on, there is, I mean, their netcode is just awful. So like, I can't believe you actually say that this one is bad, because I know that we're playing on a server and it's kind of in my favor. If you guys who are watching the stream right now, if you're noticing that I'm kind of doing a lot better, it's actually because at least I think it would be because we're on a server that's kind of in my favor, closer to me. But I mean, I'm looking at everybody. I don't see anyone glitching around. I don't see you know, any crazy hitching. The frame rate's fine. And generally your characters would be the ones that are freaking out for me, since you guys are far away. This would not be running well in Chivalry. I'm just impressed. But I'm also impressed to hear that you guys say that this is your first game you've ever developed, because I look at this game and I showed my subscribers this game multiple times, and they not only thought that it was a full released game that's been out for years, but they also were wondering what other games the developers have worked on, because and I say it in my review, you guys are probably the most competent developers I think I've ever seen in an early access game. Or not early access, but in a mid-developed game. Like, games come out, like, name any Ubisoft game that comes out and is not running this well. All of them. I was just impressed. I couldn't believe it. So, like, that's even more so impressive to me, that you guys, this is just your first project. But you probably have a huge background in game development. As far as the speed of the game, I was going to ask this question. As far as the speed of the game, it seems really realistic, like you're really weighed down by your armor, and you can actually put on heavier armor and lighter armor. But one thing I noticed when I first jumped into it, and it was really apparent, was your character is really slow. Even sprinting, your character is really slow. And you get used to it, but it's still also kind of, I wonder if it's on purpose. Why did you make the characters so weighed down?
Do you mean when wearing armor or when not wearing armor?
I mean,
because
even
the speed
even,
does change.
Yeah, I actually did. I tested that. You totally, the speed does change as you put on lighter armor and heavier armor. But I mean, even without any armor on, the character's still kind of slow compared to, I mean, at least in other games of the genre. There aren't many, but I was just wondering if you guys did that to keep it kind of ouch.
Not actually sure it is that slow. That's the thing. It's hard to measure sometimes, I suppose, and it definitely depends. But one big thing why we try to keep the speed sort of as slow as we can get away with is because in bigger engagements, like in duels it's fine, but in bigger engagements it quickly becomes like crazy fast, running everywhere too quickly.
Yeah, and I guess
something that we're still tweaking like constantly, and without a doubt it's going to change until release still.
No, absolutely. It's not like annoying or anything. It's just something I noticed when I first got into the game. I thought that the characters, the movement, the way he ran was really, it was a bit sluggish. But I also think that changing that could also ruin the game, because if you have super fast people running around, they just run around and just slash at somebody and then take off, and you can't catch up. It's one of those things that's kind of like, ouch. It's just,
the movement speed does kind of affect face hugging and stuff like that as well, so it has a lot to do with balance.
okay.
Yeah, it's mostly because the battles, if you can like full sprint like in other games, then the melee engagements, they just turn into people running around like crazy, and it looks and plays pretty bad because everyone starts kiting around. I would say the light armor is pretty fast right now compared to plate armor, and it makes quite a difference, but the plate armor being sluggish is definitely on purpose.
Okay. No, that totally makes sense. So, kind of early, I feel, to ask this question, but I was wondering about map ideas that you guys had for the future.
Yeah.
I was
Specifically.
I guess a lot of the maps right now are I actually really like them. Super nice, and they're small enough that it's not like, you know, you die and you end up all the way on the other side of the map like some sort of Battlefield game. But I was wondering if there's going to be certain things you interact with in the map that kind of, I don't know, change the way the game works, or kind of like certain maps in Chivalry. And I hate going back to it, but in the arena map, you can turn on little fire pits and stuff like that. And then I was also thinking game modes could work around some map design. I was just curious, like, for whoever designs the maps, if they had any future plans about anything like that.
Well, there will be interactables, like you could be opening a gate, closing, opening doors, there will be traps, spike traps, maybe other...
Another thing is to mention is things like you already have items on the maps that spawn, like things like farm equipment you can grab and just fight with it.
Yeah,
but there'll also be things like rocks to throw down out of walls, and stuff like catapults, and horses will also be spawning around, and ballistas and stuff like that. That will also be part of the interaction.
That's gonna be really cool. And then along with that, character ideas, more skin tones, and what about women, like female characters?
Yeah, both of those things are still work in progress, and we're kind of focusing on the male character right now because we're still not satisfied with how it looks. And once he's in a state where we can say, all right, this is going to be the final mesh for the game, this is going to be the final model, we're going to move on to the female model, and then maybe other races as well in the future.
Nice. I figured as much. I some of the questions that I had prepared myself when I first got the game were kind of the, yeah, I could ask that, but they're still developing the game kind of questions. I felt they were a little unfair, but I was also curious about them, so I was like, I'm not gonna pass up the opportunity to ask. One question though that I do feel was important. When it came to developing the game, what was it that you're looking for? So the question is, what's the main focus of development? Like, if someone were to say, yeah, Mordhau, that game does this really well, that game has this, what would you want it to be? Like, what is it you're trying to do with this game?
The combat, without question, I think.
yeah. Like, specifically, the genre's kind of niche. There's not many that do the medieval style. I mean, it's getting more popular, but what specifically about the combat? Like, just that it's fair, skill based, it's fast paced, or
it's hard to say because it's all mostly. I think it's the feel of how the combat feels, and it, because everything else plays into that. So it matters how it looks. It matters, how well the netcode runs. It matters how well the game runs, even, and how fair it is, and how well does it work when you're a new player.
Yes, I actually noticed. I was playing this on my computer, and then I went over to a friend's house and played it on his, and he doesn't have really the best machine. And I noticed that his frame rate was around 30, sub 30 frames per second. It's so important to have a high frame rate. It seems like at least 40 plus if you want to manage your swings correctly. I don't know if you guys have tested this game on lower frame rates.
It's much harder. I would definitely recommend something like 60.
Yeah,
for sure.
I definitely see that. Which I almost
like options to tone things down, and we will try to add even more in the future. So people with lower end machines can still kind of squeeze out as much performance as they can, even though the game may look worse for it.
No, I mean, it's even on the lowest settings. I mean, I turned this sucker down and it still looks beautiful. We had to over at my friend's house. It still looks awesome. He's almost using integrated graphics. I mean, he's not. He's got an old graphics card, but yeah, it was just, there was such a noticeable difference. And when I got back on here, and I actually invited him over to my house to play it here, and he was like, "Oh man, yeah, like it's just so much better." it's so much better. Which also, one thing I was actually gonna say is I could easily see this being, because it's so balanced, and the combat is so skill based. I could see it being an esports kind of video game. Is that like some sort of direction you guys would like to go, or see this game go in the future?
We definitely plan to have some form of competitive aspects to the game. Mostly at first I think it'll be dual matchmaking, and later on 2v2 or 3v3s.
Ooh.
As for like modes, I don't think that would be very competitive in that aspect, but I think the duels and the smaller sort of face-offs would definitely be something that will be fun to just kind of pop in and climb the ladders. And that's what we have planned for that aspect so far.
Cool. Yeah, I could definitely see myself doing some tournaments with this game easily. So it might be early to ask this question, but it was a question that was brought up a lot by the community. When do you think this game is going to be released? Because people want to buy it. And are you planning on doing an early access, or are you going to wait till it's finished before you sell?
We plan to have it sort of ready around March next year. I don't know if that'll be delayed or not. We'll see how things go. I didn't originally plan to have an early access release, but there have been some changes as to how early we can even begin to sell the game. We were hoping to let people in, be able to buy into it while it's still in development, but still kind of avoid early access on Steam, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that didn't turn out too well for us. So right now we'll have to decide what kind of release we want to do, and what kind of content we want to put in, and how polished we want it to be. But we definitely want things to be polished and not in a very rough sort of state.
Sure. Yeah, that makes
Alpha
sense.
is indicative of the sort of quality we're going for, even for an early version.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I actually really appreciate that too. Ooh. One thing I was curious about. I noticed you guys have controller settings in here. Have you guys played it on a controller at all?
I do from time to time, like just for testing to make sure that it even works. I mean, right now it's like half working because you can't change any weapons yet. some other important actions, but you can play the base game fine with the gamepad.
Yeah.
Just need some more buttons so you can switch your weapons properly and interact with certain stuff. But once around release, it should be fully playable with a gamepad.
The reason I asked,
Because it's actually it works surprisingly well, which surprised me actually.
Yeah, I have yet to test that out. I actually, when I saw the controller options, I was like, yeah, no, I don't think I'm gonna be doing that, but I may have to give it a shot. The reason I asked was because it might be strange, but I looked at this game and thought VR. I don't know why I'm a little obsessed with it, and I don't even have a VR headset, but I looked at it and thought that. Just the game runs so well, as of right now. Like, if I turned VSync off, I'd play this at like 100 and 200 frames a second, I think. Somewhere around that. And I was wondering, do you think that there'd be a possibility of, like, when you open Steam and it'll say VR mode, to fight with like the VR stuff, or to have a VR rendition, the swordplay kind of thing?
I'm not sure how well it would. Well, I mean, if you take this game and you add VR onto it, I don't think. Like, usually with VR, I suppose you would assume some sort of motion controls as well for the hands, so you could sort of free swing it. But that wouldn't really work with how it works right now. So if we did something like that, it would have to be some sort of an offshoot, and I don't think we'll have time for it. I would love to experiment with it though someday, so who knows. But I don't. It's not in our plans right now.
I thought the same. I see a lot of like swordplay VR games, and people are just wiggling the stick around and like, you know, just like as fast as they can to try to get a kill. But I don't know. I thought maybe like, maybe if not even the controllers, then at least being in the game, you know. I don't know. It's just it's really immersive. For some reason, my mind went VR. I think someone else is going to. Ow, my head.
Is my mic making a weird noise?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt the interview. Should we do one of the giveaways now, but best question wins?
We can do that. Sure. So the developers were really cool. Probably some of the coolest developers I've ever met, and I've met some developers, but and seriously, you guys are awesome, not only for like making the game, but for doing the interview and actually like letting me have the game in the first place. I can't tell you how much fun I've had with this video game, but they gave us some game codes to give away. If you guys have a question for the developers, and we ask it, we'll go ahead and do like best question gets a game code, and then you guys can play with us.
If you're on the Discord, you should see a section that says win free keys. Just ask a question, and if I see a good one, I'll ask it, and the devs and Barry can decide how good it is.
Perfect. While that's happening, I'll go ahead and ask another question.
Can we say that questions are bad because we don't want to answer them?
Yes.
Yes, you totally can. Yeah, if someone, and they'll ask some weird questions sometimes. So if if they ask a weird question,
oh,
did you see a good one?
Ooh, okay, I seen a good one. What are your favorite planned additions that are going to come to the game?
Favorite planned additions? Like stuff that we haven't announced yet?
Stuff. Anything really, stuff that you haven't announced or stuff that you plan to announce?
Well, the big ones are the stuff that we have announced, and that, well, for now at least, and that's the first thing we're adding is going to be the perks and skills system, which will augment the current customization, or rather restrict it, by limiting sort of the amount of armor you can wear, the amount of gear you can put on, but giving you some in that regard. So that's our way of adding further balance options to the game as well, especially later on. So when you have ranged stuff, that's also another addition, like bows and crossbows. Those we would be able to limit a bit more, so you don't have people in plate armor, shooting you from across the map. And after that, it's going to be bigger maps, bigger player counts, up to 64 players, and the optimization passes that come with that to make sure it runs really good. And also the modes. There will be a bigger mode, sort of in the vein of Conquest from Battlefield, which will also come with sort of vehicles, I guess if you could call them that. Things like catapults, horses, and those will also be a big game changer in terms of how the whole interaction really in the game goes with the environment. And it'll also spawn, I'm sure, a lot of really funny scenarios.
That sounds awesome. And I was actually going to ask about archers later down the list. That's super cool to know that you guys have thought about not only implementing them, but how they could be unfair. See, one thing I've noticed about this game when I was playing it online is the community you have right now is super respectful. When I jump into a match, generally they'll be fighting each other, and then if you want to fight, you have to press X1, and then someone will walk up to you and be like, yes, I would like to fight. And then you duel, and then you move on. And this is like in almost every game mode I've seen, other than the team deathmatch where everyone's just going ham on each other. And I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that everyone was so gentlemanly, almost. Like, every fight was good and fair and kind. But then I thought, okay, so let's add archers in here, and that's going to screw everything. Because the second you do, you're going to have those pricks over on the other side of the map just firing crap while you're in a battle. And it's just cool to know that you guys have thought, I don't know specifically that, but you know, how to keep that fair. And it would be easy to do, because I've already seen there are certain armors you can't wear with certain other like skirts and things like that. Which, why did you do that exactly? Was that for historical accuracy, or was that for...
That's pretty much just because the molds doesn't fit together.
That makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I thought
we'll just put it on balance or historical accuracy, but in fact it's bad.
Oh yeah, it's historical accuracy.
Yeah, it's historical accuracy. I actually wrote that in my video script too. It was like, it seems to be all historically accurate. Like, you can't wear this with this, and that like works. And it was funny because like it was like some of the, I don't know if it was some of the I can't think of it right now. It was some of the armor that fit together perfectly, and I was like, that's actually what this kind of soldier would have wore.
I've made quite a bit of armor for us, and like a lot of people ask about historical accuracy and like how we relate to it, and pretty much we do what looks historically accurate for someone that doesn't really know history. It's like the guideline. So
aren't supposed to say that either.
Well done.
Well, I try to be historically accurate.
I mean, pretty much like we mix armors from different time periods,
yeah,
and stuff like that, and pieces that like wouldn't be totally accurate, but it should still look like not fantasy-esque.
Are you gonna do like
actually
the Viking skull, or not Viking skull, that Viking horns, the bull horns armor? You guys think that's ridiculous?
Yeah.
That's probably not gonna be a part of the game.
That's great.
We do have another good question here.
Okay.
Someone asked, do any of your maps that are coming or have been out get inspiration from movies or some sort of mythical thing you've seen?
Slightly, maybe a bit.
Like what?
Dot.
Yeah,
Or just
fair-
throw them together.
No comment.
Fair enough.
Okay, so this one, this one was one that Muttley actually presented to me. I don't know how much I'm in love with this idea, but I was curious to ask about it anyway. Is there, or what do you think about the idea of a tournament-style game mode where you specifically go into this game mode to level your character up and to grind and get like hit points, skill points, you do more damage, and then it becomes a competitive thing like CSGO has their competitive matches, and you only go in there to do that, and you still have the fairness of this game, so then that's kind of like a side thing. I think Muttley said the idea was to keep people invested in the game by leveling up a specific class or character. What do you think about that?
We do have plans for like really deep customization, unlocks, and progression. Like right now, everything's free for everyone, and well, I don't mean free in terms of money. I mean free in terms of unlocking and progressing through the skill levels. So later on, these weapons and equipment and color options, things like this would become locked and would be unlockable as you level up and unlock these options. We don't really have plans for a tournament mode where you would go and you would unlock that, but we do have like for the duels and stuff like that, you would obviously rise in matchmaking rank, like in CSGO, and that would be tied specific to that duel game mode.
See, now that would be awesome. Yes, that would be really cool.
Probably some unlocks tied to that as well. I don't see why we wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
like
there will also
usually
be
have like season rewards and stuff like that, where you can have a name badge with your rank on it and stuff like that.
yeah, there will also be things like perks, so you can build your own character and like synergize certain perks together and things like that, make your own build.
Because right now,
weapons,
if you don't wear armor, you gain speed, but it's not really a good enough trade-off. So the only way we could balance this and really make sense game-wise is we can't make naked people run around at light speed. Clearly, that wouldn't really work.
Right.
But
oh no.
Some sort of perks that make it make other aspects of the game easier for them, or they're better at doing something else, like I don't know, have more weapons to carry around or stuff like that, or get to use bows and stuff.
I did notice that when you're armorless, you are kind of at a disadvantage, but I've seen people do it anyway because it makes them that much faster. I figured I at least I thought, because I'd seen people running around with fists, that maybe it made them punch faster.
They do run faster, but right now the weapons that you carry, they don't slow you down.
Okay.
We don't plan to make weapons slow you down, but we do plan to restrict them with the perks and systems that we're going to have soon, I hope. That's the next thing on our list, by the way.
Oh,
Okay.
this is probably a very early question, but it's one I'd personally be interested in. At the moment, the game is PC exclusive, but do you plan in the future to bring it to consoles?
Oh,
Right now.
Not right now.
Right
fair
now
enough.
we don't have any plans because well, we're a small team relatively, and we don't really have experience with consoles. I'm sure we could, try our hand at it and whatnot, but stretching our time and resources way too thin. We'd rather focus on the PC right now, and maybe someday, I don't know.
Fair enough. I have a personal question, actually.
Okay.
You know the current 280 detection system for your swinging of swords and stuff? Do you plan to upgrade that at all? Because at the moment, if you like swing from bottom left corner to top right corner, it makes your sword act differently. Do you plan to make there more variations of that?
You mean in more angles, or?
In more angles and maybe more features, like for example, maybe if you spun your sword in your mouse in a circle or something, it makes your swords do an attack that is similar to that.
But no,
you
we
mean like
we don't
doing gestures or stuff
like
like
gestures.
that?
We don't have plans for
Yeah.
gestures. No, it is an interesting thing. I guess you could fit in a lot more, but it wouldn't be very, I think, because then you have to really do something, and it's also prone to exploitation. People would be able to create, some sort of program that would drive your mouse for you, like a macro or something. And we do have to keep that in mind when designing the game, because we do want it to keep sort of this competitive aspect. So it's important that the detection for this and the gestures that you can do are really basic and can be done really quickly, so that binding it to buttons is either possible or just not so efficient that it's the best option.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we kind of talked about it a little bit before with the skins and unlock thing, but is this game ever or planned to have microtransactions like loot boxes and skins and stuff like that?
No, we don't have plan for that at launch, or we don't have plan for that at all right now. We don't have some crazy scheme in the works that's going to milk all the money from the players on day one. But if no, the only way I could see us doing that is if somehow we would be facing with the dilemma of either we continue working on this game that's no longer generating or generates not enough profit or something like that, and we need to keep the upkeep up for constant development of patches and content drops that are free and stuff like that. I could see that being the case maybe one day. I don't know. It would definitely be something that we would have to work with the community, because we don't want to piss anyone off in these terms, at least. Because, if we piss those guys off, nobody's going to be buying it anyway, so there's no point.
I cannot tell you how happy I am to hear that. That is the best answer you could have given. Microtransactions make me so mad. I won't buy a game if it has microtransactions in it. But if you were to be, really open with the community, look, here's what we're doing, or we need this because of this, and you give valid reason, man, I would see that. So that's really awesome of you guys. Again, anyone watching the stream, coolest developers I've ever met. Really look forward to getting this game. Please, it's so, it's just good. It's just a good game.
Someone just asked a good question that I'll rephrase a little. As people who started out making content for other games, do you plan to allow the workshop content for this, so people to make custom maps, custom game modes, etc.?
Yeah, SDK tools and modding support are a big part of this as well. It's a big part of. We're not dropping those yet. I don't know when we will drop those, whether it's on release or slightly after release. But mod tools are a big part of this, because they do make it possible for modders to either improve on the game or just make content that's constantly new content that brings people in, keeps them engaged in ways that we as the only developers couldn't have the time for. So yeah, definitely.
I like that. Oh man,
nice.
Community maps would be freaking insane. That'd be cool. Okay, so someone already asked the Archer's question. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but what other game modes do you guys have planned?
So the big one is going to be the Conquest Mode. That'll take most of the, we suspect it'll be the most popular public mode, because it's got these huge maps and stuff like that. Sort of similar, I suppose, to Battlefield's Conquest and Warband's Siege, where it's really these big battles. I suppose what was in Chivalry, similar to how popular the mode Team Objective was in Chivalry. That was also the big public game mode. The other thing is going to be, I suppose, duels and after that, we will see. We don't want to have too many game modes. No, usually what happens is nobody even plays them anyway, and people focus on the popular few. So we would rather get those right.
Yeah, that would really suck. And I noticed that too. Like I myself, I played Conquest in Star Wars Battlefront 2 like all the time. Played that like crazy. But the one in Chivalry, that oh crap, that one. I only rarely played, but I thought about this kind of castle. You like have a few people inside and then infiltrate the castle. I think that was actually Muttley presented that one to me. I loved that idea. But I think I would love to play certain ones like that, and duels especially. I cannot wait for. That'd be really cool, especially the tournament style. Will there be a campaign?
No single player campaign. So to touch on the sort of castle stuff and that, we definitely are looking to like have a game mode that's sufficiently generic, but also that it really creates these moments in game that are dependent on the players, because it's a multiplayer game. So you really want those crazy situations. Like even now with simple game modes, you already see this player emergence coming around with the emotes that people do constantly, and it adds a lot of freshness to the game for just something so simple as that. And we want to encourage this sort of player creativity in the ways they can express themselves on, even on just game modes and on the big maps, where they can, you see a guy riding a horse somewhere off into the sunset, or just driving that catapult off some cliff, or doing whatever the hell, and stuff like that. So that's definitely one of the big priorities we have when designing this game mode, to make sure it sort of stays fresh in this sense.
Awesome.
So there's another question here, and it's personally interesting as well, but someone else asked it. Do you plan on adding any sort of guild or clan system so you could form like a little team you can bring around with your soldiers?
Right now we don't have plans for that specifically. I think it's one of those things we would be tackling post-release, like when the major features are in, but it's not something we would be shipping with, I think.
Fair enough.
So the character I'm fighting right now looks very similar to the character that's on the front of the game when I load it. Is that a coincidence? Or
probably because just the pose there.
I mean, it looks strikingly similar.
I haven't done any actual loadouts in my game, so
okay.
I'm just using the default ones.
I think it was shortly before launching the alpha, and we needed characters for the load screen, so we had all the developers submit their customization to Thomas, to Elvaro, and he then went through them and found the coolest looking ones and just put those on the loading screens.
Very nice.
Not pretty much.
All right. How often do you guys play it?
Every day.
It varies, like per person.
Because just being the editor working on a map needs you to run through the map like 50 times a day. So does that already count as playing it, or do you specifically have to play around?
I'm thinking
against actual players.
I guess play to just because like you enjoy just to jump in and play.
That really depends.
I haven't played in a while now because I've been working pretty much with the game nonstop, but
yeah, usually as a developer, I guess you have this dilemma: do I go, play, or do I go work on the game? Which one is more productive for the game? And
yeah, of course you have to keep playing, especially with also the good players, so you don't get out of touch with how the game is played, the meta and things like that.
Mm-hmm. What is it kind of embarrassing when you jump on and like you're not as good as some of the players?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very embarrassing.
I'm probably the worst of all the players.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of something that just makes sense, though, because, you know, you get an excuse. I'm working on the game.
I mean, there are people that have over 300 hours in the alpha already, and yeah.
Jeez.
It is.
You're going up that fucking cliff, dude.
Really cool to see that how dedicated some of our fans are already, and it's really awesome to see all the great feedback we get as well. Like there's constantly we on our Discord, it's constantly discussing all the game mechanics and bugs, and it's really great to see that everyone is so actively helping us out.
Why the fuck are we all trying to pretend we're Spartans?
Sparta!
Because we are.
Oh man. So before I absorb it with more questions, go ahead and open it up to the community so that they can. Oh man, I just got destroyed.
We can't. We've used them all. I've done all the community things.
Oh really?
Two got given away because I picked the people's message and never got time to read it. But I may have deleted the messages.
Oh no. So one question I just got, because I'm also going back through the stream. Are you planning on adding some sort of specific music or a score for this game?
So, if you have noticed, the main menu has a track, and that's a track that's done by the composers who work on the game. Making more tracks of that sort of similar style, or slightly different styles for different maps and environments. But I think it really conveys sort of the meat and the punch of the game when you start it up with that soundtrack. So I think they've done a really good job.
I would definitely agree. I also, one thing I noticed is while I'm playing the game, it's kind of important to be able to hear everyone running around you. There was a time I jumped in. It was like the second time I jumped in, and I felt so cool for doing it. But I had just killed someone right in front of me, and then someone came up behind me, and I heard his footsteps, and I saw his shadow, and I turned around and blocked his sword and struck him down too. I just felt like the coolest guy ever. And I think if you like put too much music in the game, then it might ruin the sound for, like, I don't know, being able to hear crap behind you. I don't know how important it is. It just felt really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, hearing stuff is definitely super important. Not just footsteps, but even things like, you know, parries happening and stuff like that, and hits, you know, hit confirmations. I think that the music would mostly, in this case, be more sort of background, ambient, maybe ramp up in certain parts when certain things happen, like objective related or stuff like that. But it should never be in the way, because otherwise people will just mute it.
Yeah, that would be the biggest problem too. I noticed at the very end of the match, it kind of makes a little jingle. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that was pretty cool.
I don't think it does.
Oh no, it doesn't. I'm probably thinking of Chivalry again then. Oh, let's go, Fist. Let's do it.
Yeah, Chivalry does that.
Totally. Yeah, I'm so wrong. So, someone is asking, will maps from pre-alpha, such as the hilly grassland, be added into alpha? Not exactly.
Some of those maps kind of been either are being or have been reworked, or some have been, you know, outright cancelled because they weren't really complete. But I think that one, some version of that map or a grassland map will probably make it in, but don't have anything like concrete at this point.
That
I
must
to
be
answer
somewhere.
questions when you pull out a sword mid fist fight.
Oh, you still killed me.
Not cool, Crush. I was admiring
Yeah,
the
I'm
dirt.
not sure if that exact map will make it in, because we did scrap that map. Crush was making a variant of that, or is planned to make.
We didn't scrap it, but we
It's
haven't
not
touched
scrapped.
it.
It's
for
just
ages.
unfinished for a while.
Or I don't know.
We will probably
No.
eventually pick it up again.
One really cool thing I saw in your guys' trailer for the game, which I gotta tell you, I hadn't been hyped for a video game in years. I think the last time I'd been hyped for a video game was Star Wars Battlefront 2, which was a long time ago. I don't really get hyped for video games as often. I kind of let them fall upon me, but like this game, I needed it, right? But it was when I saw the jousting match with the two horses coming at each other and the dudes jousting. Is that gonna be like a game mode or a certain sub thing you can do like in a map somewhere? Because like I think that all in itself could stand alone.
You'll have horses on the maps that you can get on.
Horses, and there will be lances spawning. But you can kind of, I don't know if you've played Mountain Blade.
A little bit.
Sort of mechanic where you kind of put the weapon, either a spear or a lance, in a position where you can joust, and then you can just sort of hit someone with the tip of that weapon to deal damage, based on how fast you're going. So something similar happens when you are on horseback.
I like
And have either a lance or a very long weapon in Mordhau as well. So for like jousting, you would have to find the horse on the map, get a lance that spawns nearby, grab that, and hop in the horse, and off you go. Whether we will have a specific game mode for that, I know, but I'm sure I guarantee you that someone will make a mod for that.
Oh, absolutely.
For that game mode.
Absolutely, they will. Which again,
Hello.
I thought that was really, really cool. I think that was one of the things I was like, oh my god, I want to do that right now. When are you actually going to implement horses? Do you guys have any specific plans for when updates come out, or do they just happen?
Not even in that bad of a shape. They are sort of in the game. We don't spawn them anywhere. We're keeping them away though because the maps are too small for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
To tweak on them,
Well,
but
we
it's
could
nothing.
check them out now, but
Yeah,
there's some problems with how vehicles work right now. So
I think there was a bug last time I tried to use one.
probably our bug because we're not checking them constantly. So like when we break stuff, when we do updates,
Yeah.
more checks. But yeah, I don't know when exactly we'll be doing them. Probably when the big maps roll out or when we start rolling out vehicles closer towards release or beta.
I like how you
Focus on just the combat and make sure that this works in terms of balance and then add ranged and then slowly build from there.
That makes sense. So Shinatoshin Shi has asked, will you try to grow your player base with a large marketing campaign, or are you satisfied with the current player base, or at least people online that you see really want this game right now?
Barry, you are the way they're trying to grow the player base.
All right, next question.
So
Next thing.
we do plan to like grow the audience over time. We're trying not to do that too early.
Yeah.
We had to. That's why we've been sort of planning how we release the plans for the game and so on. Part of it has been to do with the Kickstarter. For that, we needed to sort of ramp up our presence online so that we could reach the goal, and had to reveal more and more stuff. But we want to keep surprises so that on release we can expect either streamers, YouTubers to pick the game up and have fun with it, and hopefully get some more attention. I think it's been going quite well so far. We are quite happy with how much sort of publicity we're getting. We don't want it to be too much too soon. Definitely.
That totally makes sense. Would you see, along with that answer, any reason, not that answer, the one before, any reason to implement DLC in the future, or would you just patch in or just add in content as the game went on?
We will definitely have content that we will add regardless. DLC is not our primary method of, I guess you could say, making money with this game. It's just getting the game to players and selling the base product and making sure that is the best it can be. And that includes updating it with tons of content over time as well. I mean, we are going to be working on this even after release, so.
Yeah.
So Barry probably isn't going to ask this question because he's not a dev, but I'm curious as a dev. How extensive is the API going to be? Are we going to be able to edit things like the mechanics of the game's fighting and things like that, or is it just base features like movement speed, etc.?
It really depends. We will try to make it as accommodating as possible. It's not immediately, you probably won't be able to change the core fighting mechanics of the game. Sure, you can tweak numbers and stuff like that, and some inventive people will find ways to make changes. But there are aspects of the game that are not available to modders that we will have to expose manually, sort of find what people want to change in the game, and then make sure that's possible. That's also one reason I think why we'll be probably tackling some official mods ourselves to see how good the tools are for that, and definitely working with modders as much as we're working with players right now to find out the balancing issues. So then we would also be working with them to find ways that we can expose more functionality for them.
Nice.
Oh no, and I just had a question and it scared it right out of me. I totally did too. I was like, oh, that reminds me of something. Well, that's gone.
I like the fact I spent the last several weeks trying to convince Mark that we were, professional people, and then I introduced him to you.
Yeah. That's how that always goes. They're like, oh yeah, Barry was, kind of retarded. Okay. I mean, I'm only human, but,
You're trying to imply I'm not?
Yeah.
Rude.
Well, I don't want to just rely on the community. I also do have quite a few more questions to ask, but I come up with one, and it was going to be just the best one ever, and now it's gone.
Rip.
Yeah. How did you guys meet?
I actually okay, so I think all of us except for Max have been Chivalry players, and us knew each other from there for the most part. Max joined later. We had some.
I got picked up from. Oh, you're gone.
We later on we put out recruitment ads, and Max joined along then. But it's still, I think, you've been with us for a year, more than a year. What has been 2 years?
Yeah, almost.
That makes sense. Yeah, almost 2 years. And we've all been. It's been a very close team for even before this game started.
How long you guys been?
Very few people join and leave. It's developing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got picked up from the Poll account forum, I remember. So if anyone is interested in joining a team, there's a good place to look. That's listening.
Cool. So if any of you guys out there have development experience or music experience or anything like that, that would be great. Do you guys need help, or are you just saying it just to say?
Right now we're not looking for extra help. We have been a while ago, but right now, no, we're in a good spot as far as the team goes. It's harder to manage like bigger teams, and we're at almost 10 people, so
that makes sense. Where did you guys go for the voice acting?
Right now we're using some stock voices. They're not really. They're all placeholders.
I thought
still
some of them
haven't
sounded
recorded
familiar.
Recorded proper voiceovers for. We will have them for like commands and to replace all these sounds that you hear right now for the voices at least. A similar sort of voice commands like you would, for example, have in Chivalry.
Right.
Yell and emote.
What would you guys? Ouch. This is going to be a question for each of you individually too. What's one thing that you each individually personally feel is the glaring issue? Like the biggest thing, I hate this about the game and I want to fix this as soon as possible.
For me, it's voices. The game is pretty quiet at the moment. It's only screaming and hit sounds. So I would like to have more voices in the game.
I think right now for me, maps, because they're pretty small right now and not very interactive. I'd like some larger, ones, I think.
Okay.
For me, it's mostly some smaller combat problems and some game modes missing that I would really love to play in this game, but it's mostly a content thing.
That's kind of awesome that it's that all the issues are just like, I mean, we're planning on like just adding all that in anyway. It's not like actually there is one thing I was gonna say. The stab is a little OP. Other than the ability to chamber it, if I were to, I can demonstrate too. If I were to stab this way and then move into the character, it will take that hit. He's blocking me. So I'll go like that and move.
I mean, dragging the stab in.
Yeah.
So I stab and then turn the sword into the guy, and it will register that.
If you couldn't do that, anything. I guarantee you. It would be so easy to dodge. You would never hit anything.
Yeah, like that's the thing, and I was thinking the same. I was like, man, like that's one thing. I mean, I've playing with my buddy Alec. He noticed the same thing and was like, man, this is lingering hitbox here. I could and have actually
one thing is actually true. Like the animation, it's too long right now. We're still playing with this stuff. But it's a combination of these things. But just moving it, this we don't want to change because you need that to be able to hit anything, right?
Well, no, absolutely. Yeah, what I mean is like
fingering does pose a few problems.
Yeah, I go to stab over here and I turn into you and it'll register. But like, yeah, it's one of those like it's one of those things. How do you fix it? You know, that's kind of a difficult thing to resolve. But
we do plan to, like, one of the next things we're doing is updating the animations more and more to make them more readable, make things make more sense in that regard.
Right. I mean, but of all things, I mean, I played this game. Man, I had to check my hours on it, but I played it for probably 3 days straight, and like that's the only thing I could find that perturbs me.
Get back here.
It's barely, you know, it's a small thing, so it's just I've been saying it for the past 2 weeks. Most competent early or alpha game I've ever seen in my life. Like it's an amazing game, and people out there who love Chivalry, love Mount and Blade, these even Dark Souls, like it's got the combat. I love this. Hang on, X4. That's my favorite thing to do. Right there. Come at me.
Dark Souls of multiplayer games.
yeah. That's like my favorite thing.
Oh shit.
I love the fact that the map I just seen everyone X4.
X4.
Everyone hold hands.
Yeah. Hold hands. Hold hands. He's grabbing at my boobs.
What are you doing?
This has to be a video thumbnail, doesn't it?
Come on, guys. Align properly.
Away from me.
Come on, open the circle.
Open the circle.
Open the circle.
Break dance time.
Summoning ritual.
Oh shit.
It's very serious.
What the fuck are we doing?
We're having fun, man.
This the money a great warrior.
This is the game, everyone.
This is it.
With his voice.
That's great. Oh man.
Fuck, I'm out. I'm out.
Oh shit.
Jeez. Oh man.
I actually, back on subject, shields. I noticed the other day when we were testing, shields, if you throw something at them, they block it and stop it, but if you directly attack them with like a sword or an axe or something, it doesn't. Is that a feature on purpose or just something that hasn't been done yet?
Intentional, because otherwise, if you're like in a big fight, everyone would just put a shield on their back and you would have no idea what's going on, because when something lets you block an attack with paying no attention to what you're doing, then it's very confusing because people have, the back's turned, you don't expect anything, and suddenly, your attacks are bouncing left and right because you clipped someone's shield, so it kind of doesn't feel very good.
Yeah, it feels very random. And it's
Fair
also pretty OP with the high mouse sensitivity, so you can just turn like a madman and block all the attacks.
Because we don't block the mouse when you're not when you're doing an attack, we do limit your maximum mouse turn rate, so you can't spin too much. But when you're not in an attack, obviously we're not going to limit your mouse because that would feel kind of terrible, to have your mouse limited when just looking around.
Yeah.
You don't limit it and you just spin around, you could block everything essentially, like a mad hedgehog.
I honestly didn't notice the mouse limit until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Hold on, before we continue this, I was gonna put it in my face. I couldn't see jack shit.
That's funny. So, does anyone else out in the audience have any more questions? I'm looking at Twitch, by the way, so if you want to ask any questions of the developers. And I was skipping a lot of the ones that were kind of ridiculous. But I want to give the community a chance to ask as many questions as possible, because we only have one shot at this, guys. What is your guys' favorite feature that you've added in? One of the things that you're like proud of the most, like throwing weapons is kind of cool. I think that was one thing that I was like, whoa, you could never do this in Chivalry, but like that right there. And then to be able to block it, you feel like such a bad, like oh.
But you can also attack. You can hit it, bat it away with the attack as well.
What?
And it flies off. You can even throw them like one weapon at the other, and they will bounce off if they collide in air.
Wait, okay, go for it. Do it.
It's very hard to do.
Crap. Okay, hang on. Let me try. I gotta try this. Okay.
All right, just count down.
Okay. 1.
Might
I'm
be hard.
aiming for your chest. Okay, so aim for my chest. 1, 2, 3. Or I should have said on.
Damn it, that was
I think won't help.
Go on 3. 1, 2, and then go on 3. No! Take it out of my face! Alright.
Should we stand in a circle and try to throw?
1, 2, 3. Ah, crap. Alright, well, I'm just gonna take your word for it. Oh, man.
Everyone could stand in a big circle and try to throw at the center
do
or
it.
something.
Oh yeah, we can use the center and the circle in the middle to like line up.
Oh, this
Yeah,
is
we
gonna
can
go
try
so
it.
wrong.
This work. But we can give it a shot, because I want to see this in action. That is so cool.
So we try to aim over the puddle or something.
Okay.
The puddle.
Aim over the puddle.
Okay. Someone do the countdown.
Are we aiming at the puddle or over?
Wait, why doesn't one of us stand in the
Like aim at my head here.
Yeah.
Above him,
Okay.
aim above.
Okay. All right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Something collided at least.
A couple of them totally like slid off each other. That was cool.
Try the bedding away.
So someone keeps asking, and I was ignoring it. They want to pirate the game. I'm curious.
Okay.
Good luck.
Go on.
So the reason I actually asked was because I've seen a few games where if the game was pirated, or the game was hacked and you're cheating, you can only play online with other people who hacked or pirated or cheated or anything like that, or you have higher ping because you downloaded the game illegally or anything like that. Do you guys think that there's any way to implement that into this to kind of incentivize purchasing it, or would you even want to do that?
We wouldn't want to do it. There's no point, because I mean, you could, I guess, crack the server software and then crack the client and have that, work and have people join it. You would maybe get what, I don't know, 100 players on it, if that. Very doubtful already, because like you don't have Steam to join on, so you need your own servers and everything.
Right.
Yeah, I think
it's not a big deal to us anyway.
Yeah, I think we don't really care about it, because people can download the game and then they can play against bots, or maybe on some weird Hamachi service or something like that. But in the end, it's just gonna make people want the full game more.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah. That's the thing too. Is,
Fuck you, ninja. Fuck.
Stop trying to kill me with that thing. So weapons are super balanced. The lighter ones, they swing faster. The heavier ones, they swing slower, but they do more damage. I use the rapier a lot because it's super fast, and then I put on some heavy armor and then use the rapier. It swings really fast. It takes me like 5 hits to kill people, but like I never get hit because of this thing. Would you guys say that needs balancing, or would you guys say that that's like actually the way you set it up on purpose because like it works, or would you like lock certain swords to certain weight classes just to make sure that it stays, I don't know, if it needs it, balanced?
Right now we still don't have like a stamina system in
Oh,
game.
yeah.
Like, all
Yeah.
the weapons take the same amount of stamina as block. So you have a very big weapon and you block with a dagger or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll take the same amount of stamina. So that'll be changed, I guess, shortly-ish when we add that. And the other thing is the rapier is, I think, the newest. No, it's not the newest weapon we've added. It was added before the messer. And so it's still a fairly new weapon. We're still tweaking the balance. We just added it, and we'll see how it sort of plays, especially after the stamina changes. And yes, eventually when we have the perks and skill stuff, different weapons will cost a different amount of points to get, so we will be able to sort of fine-tune the balance there a bit more, depending on what we want. But that's mostly for like the big stuff, like the big spears and so on. So we do have some sort of...
Okay,
The
so
way
Yeah.
we planned it out right now, the rapier is probably, I think it's the most expensive one-hander we have. But we might change that so it's more balanced instead. I don't know.
In the case of the rapier, for example, it would have a worse stamina game than for example, a arming sword, and that's what makes them kind of different. So the rapier is much faster and much more spammy, but you can't really spam against heavy weapons once the stamina system is in, because it will drain a lot of stamina to parry them, so you have to be more careful.
That totally makes sense. So Burnt Bacon asked a phenomenal question, and I'm looking at the outside of this map right now, kind of just envisioning it myself. What do you guys think about a battle royale game mode where you ride in on horses, you look for armor?
Here we go.
Don't start that.
Making Crush salivate.
They're all like, we've heard that one a million times.
Here we go.
Crush, you want to take this one?
So everyone these days is loving the PlayerUnknown's kind of thing. Everyone's hopping on board. What do you guys think of a giant map, one battle royale mode's gameplay? Game mode.
Crush?
Well, let's just say we have some ideas for it. I won't confirm anything, but if we have time or something, we can maybe try it out.
Yeah, we are thinking about some stuff in that direction as well. We'll see, I guess, how it pans out. Don't want to, make any promises yet.
Hype up something that doesn't end up happening. Yeah. Well, I mean, as soon as Burnt Bacon said that, I was like, ooh, that seems like a no-brainer I should have thought about. Good question, Burnt Bacon.
Yeah, there was another game called The Culling, which kind of showed that melee battle royale can be pretty damn fun. And we know it's like very popular mode right now, and there's a lot of people playing it. And the melee Mordhau would make it really distinct compared to the shooters. So yeah, we'll see.
Ow.
Wait, aren't we on the same team?
No, we're on
deathmatch.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're on deathmatch now. Does the game lose, or will the game lose more stamina when you miss your target?
Yes.
You already do.
See, that's what I thought. Yeah, and then when you hit your target, it doesn't. Oh, I could have answered that one. Oh, totally. Like, I didn't lose any stamina when I hit my target. That's smart. That's very smart.
It would be very unfun if you would lose stamina for hitting.
Yeah, I mean, shields you kind of do, right? Like, if someone blocks it, like, hang on. Let me go to swing at you. Oh,
I lose stamina if I parry you, yeah.
Yeah,
but you won't lose it.
I don't lose any at all.
But for example, when I riposte and then you parry the riposte, then of course you lose it.
Ah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so it's funny, the other day I was sitting here doing this, right? And it was at my brother, and he just kept blocking and kept blocking, and I had the rapier and he had actually almost the same weapon, that giant axe right there. And there was nothing he could do. Like, I just kept stabbing him, and if he went to block, he'd make the block, but then if he went to strike, I could just destroy him. We didn't realize at the time, I thought I had found a game-breaking bug, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna talk to the developers about this one, until I went into a map and started doing it on someone else who's played the game, obviously much better than me, and I went to do it, and I got them once, and then I went to do it again, and they totally, what do you guys call it? It's a parry, but you guys call it a chamber?
No, the spamming you mentioned, we just call it spamming pretty much.
Right. But
I parry you and you ignore my parry and you just start an attack again.
Right, exactly.
And that's basically just being really fast with your attacks. There is like right now some issues where it's in some cases a bit too extreme, and maybe we can change it.
Well, no, that was the thing. Like, I went to stab at him. He blocks the first one and then parries my second stab and kills me. Like, just like.
Oh yeah. What he did was he probably riposted and you did feign to parry it. But right now there's like some moments where it's a bit too fast, and we might take a look at that. So the game becomes a bit less spammy as a result. Obviously not too much, because you have the fast weapon, which is like supposed to be that kind of advantage.
Right. No, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic because I had thought that I'd found a game-breaking bug, and he totally, like, got out of that, just based on pure skill, was able to move my sword out of the way and kill me, and I was just trying to cheat the game. Like, it was actually pretty cool. I liked it. I don't know if it needs tweaking. I think he did a really... I think you guys did a really good job on...
It won't be changed much, but slight adjustments maybe. We'll have to see. Because in duels it works pretty great, but in team fights can be very spammy at times when the very fast weapons are fighting the slow weapons.
Well, one thing I think we're going to end up having to say goodbye to is you jump on the community right now, they wait for you to be done with the fight, they bow to you or they hit X1, and I think that's going to go away as soon as the game's released. Everyone's just going to be running around kind of like that, the chivalry. They'll run up behind people and kill them, you know, because they know they're low on health. Because, you know, as it's very, you know, as I go to hurt somebody, look how bloody this dude is, you know? So you can tell when they're low on health. So I think that's going to end up being the way people play, you know, and it's going to resort to that, which kind of sucks because I love the whole, I'm going to hit X1 and I'm going to fight this guy. I'm going to fight you, you know?
But you sort of get that when you have dual servers.
I think most of what you joined and what is populated right now are dual servers, which are set up by the community, and they have this sort of code of honor where you're supposed to do this because otherwise you're just kind of hitting people who are trying to duel.
Yeah.
In their name, like duel something.
Exactly. Duels only. I like that too, because I don't know. I never.
In chivalry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In chivalry, I'm that kind of awful player who runs around and just like slices people up. But like that's what everybody does in those regular. Thing. Is there a way I can set up my own server right now? Like you guys have that openly available right now?
We have the software, like you can run it if you have a computer for that, but I wouldn't host it on the same one you're playing.
Why do I hate you asking that question, Barry?
Because we have a server. Yeah.
Yeah, and who runs the server, Barry?
Well, no. What I was asking for people at home, if they get this game in, you know, the next year, can they open it up and play it on a server with their friends and create a password? And
yeah, definitely. You can also, there's some host providers that already offer the option to purchase servers. And you can simply, you know, grab the server files. They're available when we give them out. They're on Steam.
I was going to say, is it on Steam CMD launcher?
Yeah. It's in the tools. You get it with the game. Sort of it unlocks the tools part and has the server, the dedicated server. You can get it for. It contains both Windows and Linux versions.
I have to admit, I had avoided asking because, you know, our server isn't that great and he already runs 4 or 5 games running on it.
I'm looking through. Some of the questions were already asked. But someone was like, yeah, obviously all the devs are better than you, Barry. And I'm like,
Barry, please do a server.
Please do a server?
They're asking to do a server. We'll have one by Saturday.
Well, the thing is, like, yeah, I would love to be able to play this game with my community now, but I don't want to ask for a ton of codes because I want this game to be purchased. This is a game that deserves money, and to be honest, like, if there's a way I can give money for the code that I received, I would do it. I would do it.
There is actually, I don't know if the devs would be interested, but there is a way we can sort of bypass Discord's terms of service.
Oh, okay.
What they can do is they can give us a load of free codes, and we can then set up a donation that goes to us for community funds, which we already have set up as a part of the Bulletbarry brand image, and then we can give it as a donator reward from ourselves, not them. And when it's done, we can give that money to them as a Kickstarter fund donation. not for codes.
The reason we do actually want to sell the game, but we're not able to because of agreements with Steam and Valve. Essentially, it boils down to we cannot sell the game until it is also available on Steam. So we have a limited amount of those Kickstarter backers and those that have purchased it, but you know, after that, they sort of came to us and said, "Look, guys, you can't keep selling it."
Oh, darn. Yeah, that
go on
really
early access, or we have to, you know, release on Steam. And when it's available there, then they don't care about us selling it. But until it's not, it's sort of isn't an option.
And are you guys said you're not like afraid of doing early access, but you just don't feel it's ready for that yet.
We originally didn't plan to do it. I don't know if that'll change because of this. That's the only thing that's affecting the decision. But we will see when we get to that sort of point around February to March what will happen with this and how we'll proceed from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Well, between now and then, there's nothing stopping us discussing privately how we can work some stuff out to help you get more advertising and around that. Because we have a full, we do have a somewhat adequate legal department for Barry if you wanted to use it.
I'm sure we definitely can discuss things until then.
Certainly.
Ouch.
Ooh.
Do you have any more questions, Barry?
Actually, that was all of mine, besides the one that I can't remember that was amazing. So just remember that one was the best one. Other than that, no, I cannot tell you how happy I was when I received a code. Muttley called me up in the morning and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna make you very happy today." And I was like, "Yeah, bull crap." And he's like, "Guess who's got a Mordhau key?" And I was like, "What? What?" I was so happy. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah. Anyone watching?
You have no idea. The whole day was completely unproductive. All he had us do, the entire team, was just sit and play this game.
Yeah, a couple of my friends were like, "Man, I'm glad I got this, but it's not my type of game." I was like, "Shut up, we're playing it." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." and even they, you know, you have those games that are just not your style, but even they were like, "Man, I just want to get good at this game. I love playing it, you know, it's just fun." So you guys have done an amazing job with this game, and my community, I've played it on stream with them, to kind of show them what's in store in the next few months for them, and almost, God, 3/4 of them were like, "I cannot wait to buy this. Can I buy this now?" Or looking it up on Steam. I love that one. One of them was like, "I'm looking on Steam. Where do I find this game? I want it right now. Where do I get it?" And I'm just like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry," because I know the feeling. You know, I know what you're going through. And I saw streamers.
Not a great situation for us as well, but well, we have to make the most out of it. We didn't plan for this, like I said, so we were hoping to keep the pre-purchase options we had on our website going during this period, but it sort of didn't pan out before the release, so we had to shut it down.
Yeah, do you guys have because I know if you sell it off of Steam and then offer codes to people who had it on your guys' DRM or whatever, I mean that's another option where you could sell keys, and you could even sell them for you know, cheaper or a little more or whatever you guys decide, and be like, "Hey, $65, and we promise you a key when it goes to Steam," you know, thing like that.
That's true. The problem is we are kind of tied to Steam, like the servers, all the stuff. So I'm not sure. We are trying to find some solution for this whole thing, be it, you know, early access or pre-orders on Steam. That is also an option. But right now we're still not sure how it's going to pan out. So.
Yeah, I hear you. I really wish you guys the best with that, because God, I can't tell you. There's a ton of people who want to play it, and I know you guys want to get it out there for people to play it. I mean, it's the thing about game development. You want people playing your game, and there's a huge market for this right now. Like people, you know, there's definitely people who want it. So even if they have to wait, I can promise you, even if it's just like my community, they're gonna be hyped for the game, and I'm gonna make sure of that. Like they're.
Oh yeah, we. Just so you guys are aware, we actually done a reach out thing recently, and over 2,000 people were like, "Yo, this game looks awesome."
Yeah, I want it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's.
That is sweet.
That was
We don't
only
have-
on our Discord though, so.
I'm sure you guys know that though. Like, you know, it's just good. It's just a good game. With that being said, thank you to each and every one of you for not only answering all my questions, but for allowing me early access to the game, and just making a very competent, consumer-friendly video game that it seems like a passion project. It's just great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us. It's
Thanks
been
for
a
having
blast, and really also good for us to get some, word out to our community as well, so they can watch the stream and get some updates as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you guys to everyone who stuck around and watched. We had a 100 or so, 150 or so at one point. Now we're down to 80. But thank you guys so much for watching, and look out for this game. Add it to some sort of list so you know this is something you want. If you do want it, I won't force you, but if you want it, you can play it with me someday.